Hey there friends, welcome back to this week's garden update. Garlic planted in February is racing ahead. Bok Choy seedlings are hanging tough through the cold. Spinach and kale continue rewarding us for overwintering them. And Mizuna seedlings are ready for their next home. Meanwhile, our potatoes are chitting. Sweet potatoes, they need a little help, and I've even got some exciting new sowings to share, including tomatoes, peppers, and a couple of surprise flowers. We've got a lot to cover, so let's dig in. The garlic planted in February is showing the fastest growth of the entire garden, quickly filling in the bed, but I'm not entirely confident that they'll all sprout, as discussed in the previous video. So I've planned ahead for what to plant in any remaining gaps. Last week, we considered beets, but that's not ideal since garlic and beets have different nutritional needs at this stage. Garlic bulbs won't begin to develop until early summer, meaning they'll primarily rely on nitrogen from blood meal and feather meal until then. Beets, on the other hand, will start forming bulbs within a few weeks, requiring more phosphorus and potassium, which they'll get from fish bone meal. Instead, I'll fill those gaps with cilantro and parsley, which pair better nutritionally with garlic during this early growth period. Now, I added feather meal to this bed, and that's what you can see, the tan-colored material here. Scratching it in would be better, but I'm going to leave it this way until the plants are strong. I'd hate to damage them at this stage by nicking it or missing it with a tool. Okay, onions, Patterson variety. These haven't been doing great lately, and I'm not worried about them yet, but I'm also not impressed. As you can see, they've lost their vibrant green, mainly due to the cold, windy weather we've been having. 2 days ago, I covered this bed with a fleece row cover to protect the plants from harsh conditions and improve extra insulation. This cover was doctored last year. I ordered a large roll of fleece online, cut it to the needed length, installed grommets every few feet, and now secure it using landscape staples. In 2018, when I started a vegetable farm, I initially used bags of gravel, sand, bricks, and wood slabs to secure the tarps. That approach worked, but not well enough. I often found myself wrestling the tarps back into place after strong winds, sometimes in the middle of the night. Landscape staples alone worked great, but they damaged the tarps. Grommets, though, do an excellent job at protecting the fabric while holding it securely in place. I fully expect these plants to bounce back once we get a chain of warmer days. Okay, remember last week's frost damage? Well, check out how these plants are doing now. While the frost damaged leaves won't recover, the plants have begun tillering, meaning they're producing new shoots. This could actually be a great sign, since each shoot will develop its own flowers and beans. I've also transplanted the second sowing of fava beans into this bed, which you saw last week. Peas. The transplanted peas took perhaps the biggest hit from recent cold temperatures. Look at the color difference between these and the second sowing of peas, which I just transplanted yesterday. There are two factors at play here. First is the cold, which is stressing out the transplanted peas, leaving them a pale green. But the second reason explains why my later sowing of peas looks so vibrantly green. As mentioned briefly in the last week's video, I recently switched from T5 lights to an LED setup. And the LED has exceeded my expectations. You can find these lights affordably on places like Facebook Marketplace, often from people who previously grew cannabis indoors but no longer need them due to legalization and wider availability. The results are clear. I've never had healthier seedlings, and you can definitely get deep green, vigorous, stout seedlings too. So it's worth checking your local listings. A common issue with seedlings is legginess, like Mr. Stretch. When plants become overly tall and stretched out, this indicates that they're begging for light. They're not getting enough of it. And to check your plant's lighting levels, I recommend the free app Lux Photometer Pro. Simply hold your phone at leaf level to measure your seedling's lux exposure. That's how much light they're getting. 7,000 lux is acceptable, but ideally you want between 10 and 20,000 lux. Be cautious though. If you upgrade to a powerful LED grow light like the one I've linked in the description, your seedlings need gradual acclimation. Jumping directly from 4,000 lux to 20,000 lux could hurt them. But if you regularly bring your seedlings outside, as I do, they'll handle the transition smoothly since direct sunlight can deliver between 100 and 200,000 lux. Bok Choy. These plants are doing okay considering how chilly it's been lately. Notice how deeply I planted them. It helps shield young seedlings from harsh wind. Brassicas like Bok Choy, broccoli, cabbage, kale, they tend to develop leggy stems early on, regardless of lighting conditions. Planting deeply ensures that their delicate stems are supported by surrounding compost as they grow and mature. Additionally, the deeper soil is slightly warmer. Every degree counts in March. Overall, we're seeing some encouraging growth in the true leaves, along with improved color. I use a tool called a dibber to do this effortlessly. This week, I harvested some spinach and tidied it up by removing a few unsightly leaves. There isn't much more to report here. The plants are healthy and doing well. Kale, winter boar, overwintered. I clipped away the damaged leaves from these kale plants, and you can now clearly see the steady growth along the stems. There's another variety of kale I haven't introduced yet. Let's check those out next. Red Russian Kale. I planted these at the end of last growing season, and they've overwintered just as impressively as the spinach. I removed some of the older dying leaves. You can see a couple like right here. And have been harvesting fresh kale for salads for the past 2 weeks. Next to the kale is overwintered lamb's lettuce. I'm not impressed so far. Harvesting would be tedious unless I cut them at the base like lettuce heads. But they're still quite small. I'm hoping that they'll grow stronger within the next 2 weeks. Mizuna. These seedlings look healthy, and my plan is to transplant them into their new homes later this week. Unfortunately, while adding compost to 2 of my beds earlier this week, I accidentally tore out my overwintered parsley with the wheelbarrow. Definitely disappointing. I could have had bunches of parsley in just a couple of weeks. Thankfully, I have a fresh crop of parsley seedlings ready to take its place. I was particularly eager to share this update. After pricking out these seedlings and transplanting them into individual cells, the rest stayed behind in their original nursery tray. Look at the difference in growth between these 2 trays. Clearly, transplant shock wasn't an issue here. The seedlings are already producing their first true leaves. Sweet potatoes, orange and purple varieties. No slips yet, and that's because I've been keeping these sweet potatoes in my basement, where it's around 60 degrees Fahrenheit. When I chose this cooler environment, I figured it would just mean waiting 4 weeks instead of only 2. And I wasn't in any rush, since sweet potatoes are warm-loving plants like tomatoes. And they shouldn't go outside until nighttime temperatures are consistently hitting the 50s. Still, I'm getting impatient and ready for some growth. To help encourage slip development, I insulated the containers from the cool concrete floor and added a heating pad beneath them. Hopefully, next week we'll finally see some action. Okay, a quick pause here. Did you know that you can become a channel member? When you join, you don't just support the channel, you also get something special in return. Every year from my garden, I produce a crop share exclusively for members, featuring seeds I've grown myself, including the popular purple sweet potato slips that viewers always ask about. If you want to be a part of this year's crop share and this year's seed crop share and enjoying growing something unique in your own garden, click the join button below this video. Potatoes. Unlike the sweet potatoes, these red potatoes were doing great inside. I recently transplanted them into this wide bed here, spacing them closer together than is typically recommended. They were planted with the chits facing upward and covered with about 2 inches of soil. Afterward, I added feather meal for prolonged nitrogen release and azomite plus green sand to provide essential micronutrients. Then covered with 2 more inches of compost. Okay, here's a quick side note. Don't underestimate the importance of micronutrients. Our diets depend on them, yet they've significantly declined in commercially grown produce. If plants aren't getting enough, neither are we. If you check out only one of my videos after this, I'd highly recommend the one about the decline of nutritionally dense foods. It's up here. It's genuinely important and can help us all grow healthier gardens and live healthier lives. I think that I'm going to have excellent yields with good weed suppression in this potato bed. Moisture retention too. Let me know what you think will happen in the comments. Next to the first earlies, I will be planting my second early potatoes, which are on the chitter now. That's short for chitter tray. Next to that, I will be planting my main crop storage potatoes. Can you tell I like potatoes? New sowings. Now we've reached the part of the video that really feels like I'm talking with close friends. If you're still watching at this point, you're definitely among my favorites. Let me know you're here by leaving a face emoji or even just saying hi in the comments. If you're anything like me, you probably have a tote full of seeds and limited garden space. You would grow them all if you could, but you can't. Deciding what earns the coveted spot for planting always requires careful thought. On March 29th, I started my peppers, tomatoes, and flowers. I decided not to repeat any varieties from last year, opting instead for some I purchased from a local farm stand, plus seeds from tomatoes my friend gave me last year. 2 years ago, he grew Sun Gold tomatoes, an F1 hybrid you normally shouldn't save seeds from, because their offspring usually differ from the parent plant. But these tomatoes were volunteers from dropped fruit, and they tasted great. So I think this strain might be on its way to stabilizing, or maybe they'll flop. Either way, we will find out in a few months. The other varieties of tomatoes that I'm growing, I got from a local farmer's market. A striped Roman variety and a purple Cherokee variety. Both are heirlooms and good for different things in the kitchen. As for peppers, I'm growing some hot Portuguese peppers, which did poorly last year, likely due to a late start. There's yellow jalapenos from Baker Creek and a family heirloom hot pepper, Thai chilies, and a sweet habanero. I have also planted a couple of cannabis seeds. Believe it or not, I'm not growing these to smoke. It makes me anxious. Instead, I grow them because they're impressive plants. By midsummer, they can become enormous, 8 feet tall, just as wide, almost like a privacy bush. They're just satisfying to look at, knowing that I grew them myself. Plus, the bees love them. Ideally, I just want one female plant, but since about half will be male, and it's impossible to tell until they're 4 to 6 weeks old, I've started a few extra to ensure at least one good female survives. Another flower on my roster is the French marigold. I intend to plant them alongside my tomatoes, or maybe along the perimeter of my garden. Check out more about marigolds here. And that's the garden update for the week. Thanks for watching. Remember to drop a comment and let me know how your own garden is coming out. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we've got plenty more coming as spring unfolds.